Okay, welcome everybody. I am so happy to have you here. This is a very special masterclass we like to do in the Frame Drum Academy. And this year we're inviting all of the students. So there's students from all different levels. Some of the people that have been in our previous classes have, maybe you've been to another masterclass with Patrick, but you will soon learn that Patrick is very eloquent in speaking about the frame drum. And he knows a lot, and you can always learn something new. So I always recommend returning students to come back and learn. And for all you newbies, I'm really excited for you guys to meet Patrick. And just, a disclaimer, it's not essential that you play the Cooperman frame drums for this academy. You can learn a lot about frame drums in general in this workshop, but I do recommend getting one because they're amazing and you do have this exclusive discount. So it's worth, putting aside your lattes, maybe making your lattes at home for the next 3 months and getting yourself a Cooperman drum because they do last forever and they do sound great. And I do recommend you do purchase a good quality drum in your frame drum journey because it will really motivate you to practice more. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Patrick. So this is Patrick, and Patrick and I met in 1999. I was a student studying world percussion and I was really focused on the frame drum. And the story is that my mentor, which you guys are all learning about now, my first mentor, John Bergamo, who was really instrumental in teaching me the freehand style. I did a gig for him. I think I taught one of his classes actually. I started teaching for him in college, and he paid me with a check to Cooperman's. Smart teacher. That's a smart teacher. And then I went to a drum convention. So there were these drum conventions, and I literally sat at the Cooperman booth for 2 days because I could not figure out what drum to get. So I know what it's like to not know what drum to get and to get overwhelmed because, look at his background and look at mine. You're not even seeing what's behind those doors right there. There's, so it can be very overwhelming. But then I figured out my drum, and then I started actually working for them. Remember that, Patrick? I used to work for you, and I would go to these drum conventions and talk to people about the drums, and it was a lot of fun. So so that started our friendship, and then I worked with them to create the Marla, the first drum model, which is the Marla Tar, which also took a couple years because I couldn't.
This one?
Yeah, that one that I couldn't make my mind up on. So anyways, it's really great to, have you be our sponsor. Patrick was with me when I first birthed the Academy. I remember really working on it. They live in beautiful Vermont, and we did a retreat there last year. We're going to do another retreat. If you guys are ever in the Vermont area, I highly recommend visiting their shop. It's paradise. And I remember birthing the Academy in his house. Actually, I remember like hanging out there with you guys, and I was just launching. And so a lot of the videos in the beginning and the beautiful nature, that's in Vermont. I have a couple of videos on YouTube. So anyways, Patrick, can you briefly tell the story, just like how this started really, really quickly? I know I asked this to you a lot, but a lot of people have never heard of you before. And then we're going to get into, what drums we recommend for the Academy, the different kinds of heads, and we have time for your questions too. So we have a full experience for you all. So hang tight. But let's quickly begin with the history, just like how did you guys start?
All right. So my dad started this business. It's really a family business. It's operated by my sister and myself and my sister's husband. There are about 7 of us on staff right now. So my dad started the business. He was a drummer in a marching band after World War II in New York, started making drumsticks, and then later started making drums and marching drums, and then later frame drums. So that's the history of Cooperman. It basically starts in the 60s and evolves to today, where there are many, many contributing artists, and drums have evolved into like 35 different kinds of frame drums that make it difficult for everyone to figure out exactly what to play. Whereas when my dad started making drums, there was one frame drum. That was an 18-inch Boron drum. But anyway, the operation here in Vermont started about 100 years ago. That was a steam bending, it was a mill designed explicitly to steam bend wood for banjos, tambourines, drums, and ukuleles. And my dad sourced drum shells from Maplecraft Manufacturing, the business here in Vermont. And by the 1980s, my dad acquired Maplecraft Manufacturing. And that's around when I came to Vermont to work on frame drums. So that's the history of frame drums.
That's beautiful. What was the first drum tunable?
No, the first frame drums were non-tunable, 18 by 4-inch deep borons. That was slowly, the diameter was increased, so they went 18s, 20s, and 22s, but always 4 inches deep, always oak. They were sold through ethnic music shops around the world. Back then, people called this kind of music world percussion and stuff. So it was folk music-y, and it went into drum shops like that. And so it was a very simple early frame drum. The next big leap in frame drum development for Cooperman, anyway, is in the 1990s when we hooked up with Interworld Music Productions, who were creating instructional videos, DVDs much later, but originally VHS tapes and books with famous drumming artists. So John Bergamo was one of them, Glenn Velez, Lane Redmond. And so they were developing these educational materials. And we developed a line of drums to work with Interworld Music's instructional videos.
Oh, and then all these crazy artists started knocking on your door to want to work with you.
Well, they were here to make the videos. They were here in Vermont to literally, right, produce the videos. And so as we began to speak with the artists, we said, well, we make this very simple drum. We make one drum, an 18-inch by 4-inch deep oak boron. And they were like, yeah, well, that's not exactly what we want. And so people like John would say, you know what you should do? And then it just spun out of control.
You know what you should do?
Yeah, I hear that a lot. And, in a lot of cases, who's ever saying that is right. So we do learn and we do grow by people saying, what I really need is X. And that's why a class like this is helpful when people ask questions and we kind of begin to hear and understand the challenges that drummers are facing. And then it's our job to make those changes in the drums that will bring them to fruition.
So one of the things I really love about your company is how you really tailor to each person's needs, which is really you don't really get that these days anymore. You're not an AI.
Right. Yeah, the drums are made basically to order, which is one of the things that frustrates people a little bit because it does take us maybe 3 weeks to build a drum. If we're swamped, it can take us 4 or 5 weeks. If we have problems in production, 6 weeks. Yeah. But it's very seldom the case that a drum is pulled off the shelf.
Yeah.
It's part of our business's ethos. Go back to saying something about my dad again. But my dad was always like, do not be dogmatic. Never be dogmatic about the design. And that would be like saying, what you need is an 18 by 4-inch drum. It's like, don't do that to your clients. Let them tell you what they need. And so we don't say this is the best drum. We say we're contributing all these good ideas, and you should get a really almost perfect drum. That's what we're hoping for.
So, Patrick, one of the questions that I know you get asked is when people ask you what decision is right for them, what kind of drum should they get? How do you answer that?
All right. Well, first, I always try to say, don't put me in the position of making the decision for you. But what I can do is provide tons of information, which is what we're all about today, right? I can provide you with tons of information that we can sort of begin to build the vision that's needed to find the most accurate mix of specifications that will put the drum in your hands that works the way you expect it to. So what's the best drum for you depends on a lot. And I've identified a group of what are my categories? I call them pillars of drum design. And we really need to start asking our customers these questions. What is your goal? Is it about sound, musicality? Is it about are you a recreational drummer? Or are you playing with a band or a group? Is it comfort is more important than the final sound? Are you willing to push the envelope in terms of the ergonomics in order to get the sound that you want. So compromises always have to be made. And so when we start identifying the kinds of priorities that the individual drummer brings to the table, then we can help pick the drum.
So I like to recommend if people get one drum, that they get a 16-inch drum. You know, because the 16-inch drum is a drum that you can play in all three styles, and it's, you know, and then once you get more familiar with the playing styles, you gravitate towards a certain style. Say you want to play more upright style, so then your second drum would be a smaller diameter drum, something like this. You know, so it's kind of like you don't want to, like, I would never recommend somebody, do you agree with me, Patrick, to get a 20-inch as their first drum, because it's too big to hold in the upright, and then your wrists will hurt, you know, for practicing. For performing, you can have upright, you can have big size drums, but I want you guys to practice, and I want you to put hours into practicing. And so that's why you want to have a smaller diameter drum to practice. The 16, for me, when I practice in the lap style, I'm not doing this, right? If I'm practicing on a 20-inch in the lap style, I'm doing the chicken dance, and this is really not good on my shoulders. It's good for performing for a little bit, you know, it's because they sound great. But for practicing, I want to have a really good, you know, I don't want to hurt my shoulders. And also for men, it's not just that I'm, you know, a woman. Men also, you know, you find that you do this also, and it's hard on the shoulders. So the smaller diameter drums are great to practice in, and the 16 would be my go-to. Patrick, can you talk about the Marla tar and the tuning system? Because I always call it the hollow shell. And the last time we did this, you said it was a little different. Because why we designed this? One of the things that I like about it is it's lightweight, but yet it has a beautiful deep tone. So can you explain to them about the?
Mm-hmm. We use two different designs for our tuning system. And so one is like the one Marla has in front of her and I have in front of me, where the tuning parts are embedded in the shell and accessed through a hole in the bottom. So you use a T-handled wrench to access that. That makes this interior smooth, right? Or unshaped. So that's one method. We do that to create, when we want to create a balanced drum. So Marla was talking about all these different positions, for example. And so with that, with the drum design this way, there is some, but quite minor reduction in weight. That's a result of drilling through the shell. And that's where the term hollow comes into play. That's what made people say that, I think, is that there is some loss of material in the tuning points, but it's really, it balances straight up and down. So that's, what I think about when I think about why am I choosing the design of the tuning system. The other system that we commonly use, I'll grab one, is this, which is I think maybe more common in the world of frame drum building. But so the tuning system is up high near the top of the drum with a support hoop, a liner hoop, and the tuning screws in there instead of embedded in the shell. This system does two things. It helps us in construction because we don't have to drill through a very, very deep shell. So we never use through the shell system anything deeper than 3.5 inches, which is what those Marla drums are. But when we get up to a very wide shell, this one is 4 3/4. We use this internal tuning system here, this inside tuning system. And it also, what I call, forward weights the drum. So when I was originally being taught to play frame drum, I was always encouraged to tip the drum slightly forward. I don't know that Marla teaches that way, but
I do teach that.
Okay. So what's nice about the liner hoop is that it tends to make the drum not balanced. It tends to force it forward weighted. And so when you're just playing, the drum always tips with gravity away from you. So that's the advantage of the liner. The disadvantage is that it's heavier. And so like I said, we're always making these compromises. When we talked with Marla about drum design, and she expressed that she wanted a shallow drum, she wanted it as light as possible. It seemed natural to go with the system, of course, that we did in fact use. So that's why we have that, and that's why the two systems exist. I think if you're out in the world, what's the alternative? A lot of European drummers, drum makers use a pneumatic tuning system. And so that's another thing, but they need to add extra depth to their shells to get that pneumatic tube in there. And so that's another whole conversation. But if you want to talk about designs for tuning drums, those are the three designs that are out there.
Can you, while you have a drum in your hand, can you talk about the different heads for
Yes.
people?
Thank you for not asking me to play it while I have it.
Can you play for us? You guys notice Patrick never drums. Maybe we should ask him to drum. How to get him embarrassed is asking
next time.
See how his face turns red?
I might be leaving. Yeah. So let's see. The question's about compromises. So so we've actually touched on several of these pillars that I talked about, drum design, like depth, right? Shell thickness, tuning system design. One of the very most important ones is the choice of the drum head material. So I have both of these are somewhat unusual diameter. These are 17-inch diameter drums, right? This one has Remo Renaissance. You can see that sort of opaque white head material. This is a polyester, right?
This is also Renaissance here, the green goddess and the
The Remo Renaissance is our go-to head material. That's our most common. It's our standard, I guess, and we think it's really, really good. The alternative is this ebony suede. So I think the word suede is a little bit, it's a bit confusing because I think sometimes people expect the surface to really feel like a piece of suede leather, and it's not. The term suede comes from Remo themselves, so they call it sueded head. And that's because the backside of the head, as you can see, is reflective. And so this surface, which is really black and opaque, it has some surface texture. You can actually hear it. It's not suede-like, so that's a little bit confusing. When people hear suede, they assume that it's leather, which it is not. So this is another variation of mylar that Remo produces. It's black suede. Remo formulates all of these different materials, and they have 60 different kinds of material. All of them are formulated to emphasize some aspect of the drum sound. So they're thinking about, are you playing a snare drum? Are you playing a tom drum? Are you playing a bass drum? Are you going to be using brushes or your hands or a stick? So Remo is formulating all of these different recipes of mylar to bring out different timbres in the material. So the difference between the Renaissance and the black is that Remo designs it to darken or lower the timbre of the drum. It doesn't lower the pitch.
What does timbre mean for somebody who doesn't know?
Well, it's like tone. So like a pitch is scientific. So you hear that note, it represents a vibration of a string. And so we know that's scientific. Timbre is that thing that we say, oh, that drum sounds really bright. That drum sounds really muddy. It sounds choked. All those weird things that you can't scientifically point to. You can't take out your app meter and use that to find the timbre of the drum, right? So the timbre is that thing that we're going to say, oh, that drum sounds really warm. It sounds resonant.
So let's stop there and say that. So the suede heads, for me, they're warmer. They're more meditative. Someone asked what's the more meditative drum? The Renaissance are more bright. They're more performance oriented. Studio, I think, recording better because they're brighter. Those are the difference that I feel. One's bright and one is more resonant, meditative. How would you say?
Or melodious? You're using all the right words. And so but I think what you have to what everyone needs to keep in mind is that you're choosing one at the cost of something else. So it's like it's not like you say, well, which is better? Is it, could you say a Renaissance is better than an ebony or vice versa? That's not the case. They just both do very different things. And so if you choose that meditative warm sound, what you lose is some articulation, some of that brightness, and for me, some of the edge sound. So you have to have a very strong tuck on the edge of the drum.
Okay, so let's pause there. What Patrick just said. If you choose the black drum, this black suede drum, you lose the clarity of the strokes. You need to be stronger with the strokes. Is that what you're saying? Because you
Yeah,
practice so much, Patrick? Is that because you're practicing so much? Is this what you're realizing in your practicing frame drum 101?
I'm hearing it. And so, I see drummers who own an ebony head, and I think that I can actually see them working harder. You can see that in their hands. You can see it in the muscles of their arm. Is that you really have to, or you have to be a very good drummer or a very strong drummer to really
So the black
articulate.
suede head builds muscles, builds more muscles.
You could see it that way.
Sorry.
But I mean, alternatively, the Renaissance doesn't maybe too bright. Maybe you hear too many overtones.
Yeah.
And so the ebony takes that away. What you
But
don't have is one that does both.
well, this is why we have a discount for two drums because
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it's really good to get one of each and you guys explore for yourself because everybody feels it differently, and but what we're saying is like the generic, the white the Renaissance is a tried true head that they've been using for thousands of years. No, they didn't use that. They used what did they use before? Goat? Was it goat, the first frame drums?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say goats probably. Yeah,
Yeah.
different cultures, but goat is really common. Yeah.
Goat. So, but the Renaissance is the brighter one. It's, it's the more stage oriented one. Um, and I've been using that for years until like 2 years ago they rolled out these black suede heads and they are more meditative, they're beautiful. So it's like I can't tell you which is better and I really feel like one student should get one of each and the cool thing is about the Coopermans. So we talk about how you can customize the drums. So for example, you want to say you get the Marla tar, right? The Marla tar is really cool because it has this M cutout and you can use it playing this way. You can put your thumb in here and do little you could do little flips and it's lightweight. But say you hate orange. Orange is just not your favorite color and you really love purple. You can be like, hey, I want my drum purple, and then say after playing this drum for like a year, you're like, you know what? I want to try a Renaissance. I mean, I want to try a black suede head. So you can ship it into them and you can change the head for a small fee. So you can actually, if you only want to get one drum, you can explore playing a drum with a Renaissance head for say a year or something, and then ship it back to them and change your heads. Now, you can always, this is another thing that's really awesome about their company is that once you get a Cooperman drum, it's a drum for life because you can ship it into them and have them change your heads. Now, I don't get my heads changed. I call them facelifts, and I get them about every 8 to 10 years. So that's how long these heads last. But if you don't want to wait that long and you want to get yourself you change your head type, you can do that, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. We should go over two small details that I think need.
Oh, you and the details. Okay, you go for it.
So all of our drums from all of our artist series evolve over time. And one of the things that has happened to the Marla Lee series is that it has evolved since 1990s, early 2000. And two of the major changes in the Marla Tar, that 16-inch model that she's been using a lot today, and that I have a new version of in my hand, is that there's no graphic on the head anymore, right? So we used to screen print on these heads. We're in Vermont with a bunch of hippie neighbors, and our hippie neighbors used to do that screen printing. They've sort of disappeared. And so we no longer have the facility to put a graphic on the head. So Marla Tars don't have that graphic on the head. What we did do was add that graphic to the outside. So the Hamsa is now on the outside of the shell, but not on the head. So that's one. And the other has to do with the grip, which is one of the pillars of drum designs. So Marla showed you a drum that has an M-shaped cutout. And so that's one of the vestigial parts of the product development for the Marla tar. So in time, when we first started working with Marla, we were talking a lot about, are you left-hand dominant, right-hand dominant? And I worked with another woman artist, Rowan Storm, and she was talking about left brain, right brain drumming and all that. And so it was very maybe faddish at the time to consider these left and right hand dominant things. And so the M-shaped cutout was designed to do that. Over a period of time, I've noticed that Marla wasn't using that. Every time I saw her with a 16-inch drum, she was using the thumb hole. So he said, why are we putting this M-shaped cutout in there? And so after talking about that topic, we decided to eliminate the M-shaped cutout and revert down to just the thumb hole. Again, there's always these compromises. And one of the upside compromises when we switched to only the thumb hole was that we were able to add one extra tuning point. And so Marla's students are often very attuned to the tuning of their drum.
We're attuned. We are attuned. We're an attuned community.
That's right. I will not say what I'd normally say to Marla, which is they fuss too much with the tuning system. And so adding that tuning point gives you a little bit more control over the tuning. So we did lose the M-shaped grip. You lost that extra flexible left-hand, right-hand thing. The thumb hole is totally ambidextrous, so you can be left or right hand dominant. And what we did all get is one extra tuning point. So the drum evolved a little bit, but I don't want anyone who sees the drum today in our class and orders a 16-inch Marla tar. They're going to get this. No graph.
That was very good points. Now, can you show the hamsa on the drum?
Yeah, we can get it close.
You can also change that design. They have a bunch of designs. Like if you want to get a design on your drum, they have other designs you can have. So it's really cool. Like people start, it's creating their own drum that way. I'm just going to quickly just go over the drum signature, my signature drums with them, and then we're going to talk with Patrick about care of drums and his idea of tuning. But we have a couple different drums. We have the Green Goddess. What is the diameter of this drum, Patrick?
14.
Yep. And this one is really sweet. It's really lightweight. I really love her. She's really, really wonderful for upright. I also could play this in the lap style. And freehand, it would be, I can still do it, of course, but you don't get that beautiful resonant sound with this because it's a smaller drum. So hence, this would be a great second drum. This would not be my first drum. But if you find that you really like the upright style, you want to sing into the drum, you want to dance, you want to move, I would recommend this as your second drum. And if you don't like green, you can get it, I don't even know, polka dotted pink. I don't know, you can. And they also have a little rope here, so you can also customize the color of the rope.
Yeah.
And then we
natural too.
You can what?
Natural wood color, yeah.
You can get natural. You can be natural. And then we have Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze. Now I really like this one for lap style and also upright style. And we have a beautiful depth here, so I can really have a lot of space. As you get more into your drumming, as you learn more skills, it's really nice to have a little space here because your hand moves around and it's nice to have a little bit of space. So in the Remo drums, I don't have a Remo drum here. I do have a Remo drum here. You'll notice that they're wonderful drums, like for your first drum, until you can save to get a nicer quality drum. But my big issue with the Remo drums is the depth. And also they're not real wood. And also they're not tunable, but I have a lot of, but they're great first drums and great if you're traveling with kids and, but there's not a lot of depth here. And we want depth. We're deep people. No, it's really nice for the playing to have some depth. So, and, this drum can be, it's not so high pitched. I think it's because of the depth. We do have it's a little bit in the lower world, and everybody really wants a lightweight, low tone drum. This is like. We want world peace and a lightweight. Okay, so this is the Purple Haze. Again, you can have it any color you want. Um, and then we have this new drum that we're still working on it, but it's beautiful. It's the 20 inch, and I don't know the name of it. Patrick knows the name. Some kind of orange from Italy. Tarantella orange.
Not quite. It's a Tarocco moon drum. That's what we're calling. Tarocco is the Italian blood orange that we named it after.
Okay, I got to get that. This is new, but this is definitely like the meditative. Do you guys hear that? It's really. And it's lightweight. Like, I am very impressed with how light this is. And there is some depth here, so it's not, it's not your standard. There is some depth here, so you have a lot of space here. And if you don't want the, black suede head, you can get it in Renaissance. So this is a 20 inch. Okay, so again, this would be my second drum, because practicing lap style with the hours that I want you to put into practice, I don't want you practicing on a 20 inch. Because you will get pain in your arms. Everybody will, no matter what your size is. It's hard. Maybe you're like have super long arms. If you have super, super long arms, okay, you get the exception. But 90% of the people, you're doing this, even if you're a guy. Okay. And again, I'm really into body health, and we want to be drumming together till we're like in our 50s. I'm in my 50s, so we're in our hundreds. So you really want to have ergonomics, right? So, but the 20 inch is really wonderful as your second drum for performing, and for freehand style, it's really, really wonderful. And also in the upright style, it's really, really nice. But again, I wouldn't practice like this because again, it's a little bit heavy. So that's why this 16 inch, whatever 16 inch you get, is a great first drum. And then from there, you decide which avenue you want to go on. And what happens, my friends, is that the drums have babies. They just hang out inside here, and then all of a sudden you wake up and there's another baby. They just kind of have babies. And that's why we are called the Frame Drum Academy, the FDA, the Frame Drum Addiction, because it's a really great addiction to have. So we're going to talk about a few more things, and then we're going to take questions. But Patrick, can you talk about your durability of these drums? Because people are really scared that they're going to break their drums, and
Yeah, I tell people that the most important thing, don't be afraid of the drum, and don't be afraid that you're going to damage it in some way. The drums are incredibly durable. They're robust in design and in material. So they're single plies of steam bent local Vermont hardwoods. So you're not going to really hurt this drum by dropping it. Obviously, you can break a head or something like that. The heads themselves are incredibly durable. If you drop it on something sharp or even something blunt, you could put a ding in it or something like that. But the practical part of it is that they're not fragile. And so don't be afraid of your drum. I know that they're not inexpensive. And so when you own something that you invested $500 in, you're careful about it. And that makes good sense to me, because I would be careful about it too. But you don't have to be afraid of it.
now what if you get some dirt on the head? What if your kid puts some
Right.
chocolate on the head?
Yeah. Yeah, that has happened frequently. I mean, children draw on their parents' drums, or not even their. Anyway.
They pee inside. My student had her kid pee in the drum. This is a true story.
Yeah. The Remo head material is hugely durable and cleanable. So
how do they clean it? How would someone?
Both Remo and Cooperman will recommend using just soap and water. So you can be any mild detergent will do the job. I always tell people, additionally, and sort of anecdotally, we take cleaner to the drum. So when Sean's daughter drew on the drum here, we would take, a common household cleaner. So I'm talking about brands like Fantastic, 409 Cleaner, or we often have around the shop these green cleaners, so Simple Green, something like that. You can use that on the head to know with no impact on the playability of the head or the nature of the head. We have gone as far as using things like lacquer thinners or acetones to take permanent markers off drums. It works. I'm not recommending that you use those products. They're not cool to have around and not cool to expose yourself to. But the point is that the head itself is extremely durable. So you can do what you need to do. Start at the minimal thing. Soap and water does a whole lot of good. Water all by itself with a clean cloth will help. The blackheads attract dust. This one is really dusty. This is a 22, by the way, Marla. You can clean it like that. The shell itself is local steam bent hardwood. It's then coated with lacquer, so a nitrocellulose musical instrument grade lacquer. Then that is buffed out, and I typically add a little bit of a wax to the outside to help it shed water. So you're looking at something with a very plain, simple finish, but it's really durable. In time, you'll scratch it, you dull it up. You can bring back the sort of dull, rubbed finish by adding a little more paste wax to it. So I'm using a floor wax, technically called a bowling alley paste wax.
But we don't need to wax our drums. We just need to, we can just clean them with like regular. But what I want people to really know is that they can use water on their drums. People are really scared to use soap and water on their drum heads.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to soak the drum. You don't want to leave it out in the rain. But
Right.
that said, if it's dirty, if you having you're having your drinks, cupcakes while you're playing your drum and you get chocolate on them, wipe it off and go for it.
And tell us about the heat. Does it affect the drums, leaving the drum in the heat?
Extremes of heat. All this is about extremes. So I'm a big preacher about moderation and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, like, so the worst case scenario is when people leave a drum in the back of their car. So Marla talked about treat your drum like it was your child or something. It's like, don't leave your kid in the back seat of the car. We all know that today. The same thing with the drum, So if it's sitting in the back of your car in the blazing sun of the California, summer, and it's sitting at the beach, and the interior of the car is getting up to 120 degrees or something like that, it's gonna mess with the drum. So don't do that. However, all that said, I mean, just keep it in the shade, keep it somewhere happy. Same thing with cold, but heat is worse than cold for them. And I think that like a clue to that is that Mylar, if you just look at the chemical specification sheets on the Mylar product, you're talking about 400 and some odd degrees is where it begins to move, right? So it starts slumping a bit at 400 degrees. So, in your home, is it 400 degrees? I don't think it really gets there. Hopefully not. And so just treat them kindly, treat them gently, treat them like a good friend.
Yeah, and you don't leave your kids in the car with the heat, with no fresh air
or a pet. I mean,
yeah. And I leave my drums in the case as much as I can, but I also leave them out as long as I know that like there, there's not going to be direct sunlight on them, and people aren't going to like be kicking them around. So I really like to encourage everyone to get a special place in their home that will be like a little drum sanctuary. And then you can leave your drums out. You can have your drum journal, and it's like it's like your spot you go to. It's like that's, and it's so much easier. Like I'm practicing tabla, and I leave my tablas out so I can see them. Like if you see your drums, you will play them more. So it's nice to have a dedicated place in your home if you can do that, if you have the space where your drums live. Okay, one more question for Patrick, and then I'm going to take questions. So you guys, we're going to have some time if you have your own questions to ask. But Patrick, what do you say about tuning? Can we hear about your take on tuning the drums?
Yeah, I think that over time my approach to it has changed a little bit. But what's very clear to me at this point in my career and working on drums is that the tuning range of a frame drum is extremely limited. So each diameter defines a pitch. You can turn a 12-inch diameter drum into this pitch of a 16. So in the past, it was like, oh yeah, I'll just crank up my drum, or tune it down, and you jump to that other pitch. That doesn't happen. So you need to accept that when you've chosen a diameter, you've also chosen a pitch range.
Okay,
And
so let's stop there so everyone hears that. What he's saying, just for all, because he's very eloquent with his words, um, when you get a drum, it has a happy place. It's like has its sweet spot with the pitch, and you don't want to try to. There's not a drum that will go to all pitch levels, and we really wish there was, but there is not. So, Patrick has on the website the different pitches of the different drums and where they like to live. And it's really important to keep your drum in that positioning of those pitches, because if it wasn't, it's like your body's like this. It's like out of, stretch. Say it's you're trying to really raise the pitch and you're stretching it. And then like you want to really make it sound better and you go to tune it and then but it can't be tuned because it's used to be stretched out. It's this is really, really important because a lot of people think that just one drum will change the pitch and we can go a whole octave, and it only goes in note wise, it only goes like one note, one or two notes of a pitch.
yeah, I'd say one step like that.
Yeah.
But a lot of this information, by the way, I just treated like frequently asked questions, or we have them on our web store as a blog post. And so there's specific topics like maintaining your drum, the durability, the kind of woods, the type of heads, all that's on our blog posts. And so if any of you want to see that in writing and get a better idea about what I'm talking about, check out our blog post. If you don't find it readily, just drop me an email and I'll send you a link to those. But back to the question that Marla's specifically asking. What's really nice about this, what I call discrete tuning points, is that basically we're back to that idea that it's a science and you're looking at a node, a length of a string that's vibrating. And that's actually something that Marla's teacher, John Bergamo, taught me. And so we're looking at a pie. And the pie, the center of the drum is the center. And then all the wedges of the pie are related to each one of those tuning points.
Can you
So,
show that again? Can you show them the pie up close? Because now they
well, I mean, so we have these tuning points, and this is the center of the drum. Each wedge of the pie, in my mind, is the wedge that's formed from the center to the tuning points, the next two tuning points. And so that node that's being struck and vibrating is related to that wedge of the pie. If the drum head is out of tune with itself, you hear a wobble in the note. It's not that you don't hear the pitch you want. That's the mistake. It's thinking, oh, I'm looking for a C, but I'm only hearing a D or something like that. So it's like, it's not about that. It's about saying this C is wobbly, something like that. So the way to take that wobble out of the sound is to make the tympanic tension on the whole drum even. And you can find where around the drum head the wobbliness is being caused by uneven tensioning. And then you can adjust only that wedge to bring it back in tune with itself.
Yeah, we have. I'm actually going to give everybody the replay. Patrick and I did a whole like focus tuning masterclass, and it's actually really, really good. It goes in depth about how to do it, and I think that would be a good thing to give you guys because it is like it's a very deep topic, and we could spend like hours on it. But we want to let you know that where is my tuning key? That you shouldn't have to mess with it too much. So Patrick, do you want to talk about something while I look for a key? They don't have to look at me.
Sure. I think that for me, I've seen so many first-time drum owners get really in the weeds about this tuning thing because when I was first introduced to drum building and through my dad, I mean, the mantra was that drums are non-specific pitches. And so unlike a stringed instrument or a flute, drums are not tuned like that. But today we do, in fact, we meaning the frame drumming community, have broad expectations about musicality to the drum, which before might be seen as simply a rhythm instrument. But now it's more musical. And so people are trying to tune it, all fine and good. Just keep in mind that the limitation is extreme on a drum in comparison to a guitar or a flute.
Yeah.
And so you can get yourself really like crazy and frustrated trying to perfectly pitch that drum. It's not a harp. It's not going to do that for you. And
So what you
I
do
apologize for all percussion instruments.
when you first get your drum from Cooperman, if you get a Cooperman drum, the first thing you do, we go over this in the video that I will make sure I give you guys, but you want to like set the collar. You want to like make sure that it's like fitting in, you know. So you just go around and you press in, even if you have a quite a new, if you right now are watching and you have a newer frame drum from Cooperman, this is a really good thing to do. You might hear a, it's like, you know, in the morning when you crack your back a little bit, it's kind of like this, and then it's just kind of like, you know, saying hello, and the drums usually come to you tuned, right? And then you're gonna tune it by hitting the rim. And we have the different pitches that they like to live in. Patrick has it on the website. I also have it on my blog. And it's really good to use a tuner, you know, because I've been a trained musician for many, many years, and my ear is pretty good. So what I like to do is I like to sing the pitch. So I find a pitch that I like. So and I sing it. Okay, I like this one. This is going to be my pitch, right? And if I was new to this, I would go to my this, and I would look on the tuner and see that it was in the range that the drum is supposed to be in, and I would say, okay, this is the pitch that I want. And then you would hit it, and the tuner gives you like a little line, and it tells you when it's in tune, and I would watch that line. But I'm going to be my own line right now because I wanted to show you guys how to do it with the key. So this is like home base. And I'm going to sing it. Then I go around to the next one because it's not a big drastic tune. It's just going to be small. So we just go this way. That's a little sharp, which means it's a little high. So when it's sharp, what do? Lefty loosey, righty tighty. So if it's sharp, you want to make it a little bit lower. And I'm talking very little. I'm not talking about like this, you know, this is what Patrick is saying. You're not like, did you see how small I went? I went so small. Right? And I think, okay. That's it. Now this is a little sharp. I'm pretty quick at this because I've been tuning instruments for my whole life. But so what do we do when it's sharp? If the pitch is too high, you want to make it lower. So what is lower? Lower is loosey, lefty loosey. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. So you go to the left just a little bit. Do you guys see how little my wrists are moving? Okay, this is huge. And really, when it's a very small, you know, sound that you want to fix, it's really a small turn. It's nothing crazy. That's good. That's a little low, so if it's lower, I want to raise the pitch, and I go to the right. I want to make it tighter. So, and I'm going very, very small. What is that? Guess here? It's sharp. So in the beginning, you can look at your tuner, and your tuner will show you, so you can start to hear for all the people that are very new to this. If the tuner is leaning one way, that means it's sharp. If the tuner is leaning the other way, it means it's flat. And then you start to get used to this. And then all of a sudden your ear will be trained, and it's great. So, it's flat, and we go a little higher. So that's like a super fast tuning, you know, but singing it really helps me. So I want to recommend you that you sing it and you look at the tuner. This is just a little tuner that I got. It's Korg. It's like $25. You can get this. You also have them on your phone. You can get an app for your phone. And then once the drum is tuned, it should not move unless it is in drastic heat. You know, if the heat is what I notice really switches my drums. So, yeah. Anything else you want to add to that, Patrick?
No, that sounds good. I mean, I think, you know, my take on all this is that the less fussing, the better. You know, the drum is there for you to enjoy. And so If it's just giving you all this frustration because you can't quite chase out that last perfect position on the tuner knob, I say don't look at the knob anymore. Listen to it. If it's not driving you crazy, then it's a good thing.
Yeah. Somebody wants you as a question about your tambourines. Can you
Okay.
just briefly talk about the tambourine drum? Annie, you want to,
Yeah.
do you know what, do you have one you want to know about, Annie, in particular? You can unmute yourself if you want, or you can unmute or you can type. We don't hear you in general. Okay, she just wants to know in general about your tambourine drums.
All right. Well, we make again. They all come from that sort of old world vision of world music. So we take our inspiration from a lot of drums that are embedded in cultures of people around the world. So, for example, this is a Pandera, right? So this is, I guess when I think of a tambourine, I imagine something that's like a concert tambourine or the kind of tambourine that's played in the church environment. So a shaker, very strong on the jingles and not very strong on the drum sound. Cooperman tambourines are really drums. So I actually call them jingle drums to distinguish them from Western tambourines, which are shakers and are really jingle forward. So the Pandero has this dead, thuddy head sound with a very small amount of movement in the jingle slot. So this is an example of a tambourine that's more of a drum than it is a tambourine. So specialized head, specialized jingle slot, heavily domed jingles, all these specifications are going into doing that. Very shallow shell. Right? Mike suggested that I talk a little bit about ricks because I think that comes up with Marla's group more than, say, a Pandero. But a rick, say, is an Egyptian style tambourine. And so what we have on here is this is a clear, Weather King clear. So it's another kind of remote product that's made to emphasize this extremely bright and articulate timbre. The jingles themselves are heavy plates of brass or bronze, and they're hammered. So a tambourine like this, where even the jingle is articulated, so it's not being, so it has a shaker sound, but it's really about articulating by playing the jingle. So another example of what makes this in my world more of a drum than a tambourine. The ricks are extremely heavy. So most of Marla's students, the first thing that they comment about this kind of tambourine, oh my God, I never expected it to be so heavy. There's almost a pound worth of brass on this drum. Yeah, an alternative to that is, say, an Anana tambourine. This one doesn't have jingles on it, but it's sort of the hybrid world between concert tambourines and ricks. So this is based on an idea that Lane Redmond's students, the Anana Sisters in Rhythm, designed this drum. So this will have a very lightweight nickel silver jingle on it and will actually sound a little tinny in my mind in comparison to a rick. That tinny does not mean to discredit the quality of the sound. It's meant to sound that way. So there are tamborellos, hajiras, which are fusion tambourines, ricks, panderos,
It's a whole other
the
like
whole world of drums and
I mean,
drums.
it's quite fascinating that the frame drum is such a big family, you know. We in the academy, we only teach you we teach you just the three style. I mean, just that's a lot. We teach you the lap, the upright, and the freehand. We do not teach Rick or Pandero. The vocalization that you learn, the techniques, you know, not the techniques, but the Middle Eastern drum syllables, they transfer to the Rick because the Rick is a Middle Eastern drum. And we actually had one of my teachers, he did a Rick workshop. And that replay is actually available if you're interested in learning that. And they use the Middle Eastern language. But Pandero is Brazilian. It's a whole other vocalization. And something you do learn a little bit about in the academy is the conjura. So do you have a conjura there?
I don't. I don't
You
have one.
don't have a conjura? Come on.
No, sorry, don't have a Kenjir.
So this actually was my first drum. Okay, I'm a flute player, and oh, when I was studying, I my first year, I was like, I went to Europe and I played music on the streets with my girlfriend, and this was the drum we brought because I had just started, and this is like what John Bergamo gave me. This is John's. This was his logo. So these are nines put together, and nine is a number of infinity. Anyway, so that's the Bergamo. But then this is the Cooperman Conjura. And what we do a lot of is the split hand technique. You guys will learn that. And that comes from the Conjura. So the Conjura is South Indian. So it's really cool. It's kind of like the worlds bridged together. We don't do any Pandero technique because that's held this way. And I don't, but a lot of my friends play the frame drum with Pandero. It's kind of, a fun way of doing it. So it's this whole like soup. It's like frame drum soup. I'm gonna answer a couple questions, but you guys can look on their website. They've got all kinds of all of their jingle drums are there, and the Anana one is really really cool. I recommend that one if you're looking for a Rick because it's hybrid and it's lightweight and so sorry for that. Okay, question is we have many questions. Okay, so how do we know what notes we want in a drum? Will we use different drums when playing others depending on the key? So it is your drum size. That's what lets you know what you want. So I recommend you guys start with a 16-inch drum. And we have the pitches for that, for the Marla tar if you decide to get that, or if you decide to get another Cooperman, they have their pitches on the website. And that tells you what notes that your drums should be living in. And it's pretty obvious when your drum's out of tune, and that's when I would go to this, your tuner, and tune it back down or tune it up. So again, there's like a chart, and so the Cooperman has it on their websites, all the different charts for the different drums and the different pitches that they live in.
But I'd add that what you're going to be teaching about rhythms and patterns and hand positions, a doom, a talk, a pop, whatever, that is applicable to any pitched drum. So it doesn't really matter whether the 16 is a good call. You're absolutely right, Marla, in thinking that that's where people typically begin. But actually, what you're going to be teaching too, it's not like you've written a piece of music and everyone has to be on the same pitch, right?
Right. No, they don't have to be on the same pitch.
That's right. So you can take this class with whatever pitch drum works for you.
Right. But how do they know what pitch it is? It's the drum size. The drum size tells you.
That's correct.
Diane asks, this is for you, Patrick. What is the difference between the rolling bearing edge of the Marla and the hybrid edge of the Asheville? Diane, you've been doing your homework. Do you want to speak to Patrick directly, or here? I'm going to unmute you, Diane. I see you in the window here. You can.
Okay. So I don't have an Asheville drum here with me, but actually this is on the blog post. So on one of our blog posts where hopefully you can actually see those edges, maybe a little bit of close up. But the story is that just, like we build drums for Marla and her students, the Asheville drum was designed with a person named River Gagarian. And River teaches a somewhat more contemporary approach, a less ethno-musicological centric approach. So he has a more modern sound. The hybrid bearing edge on the Asheville drum suits River's sound style, his climate of his group, sounds that more modern way. It's not very typical of, it's very unusual. And so that's why that edge exists. That said, Marla's, you're going to find a range of those bearing edges from, say, the Purple Haze drum, which has a very rolled bearing edge, so it's rounded. And then our classic designs, which are relatively straight up and down.
Wait, hold on. Let's give. This is the bearing edge for the Purple Haze.
I don't know how close I can get.
This is what a bearing edge, you guys, for those who don't know what we're talking about, the edge of the drum.
But this is basically, supposed to be straight up, and then it has a small contact point. So this contact point is like a 1/16 of an inch, right? On the Purple Haze, this comes up, but instead of coming straight up to that contact point, it's rounded there. And that's partially because of the way Marla was playing the drum when she first talked to us about designing it. And that was about holding it with more, here, so that you have, it was more like Doombeck. And so that Doombeck that has a big rolled, maybe clay body, for example, where you're really sitting there and have your hand rolled over the edge of the drum. That's what that rolled bearing edge does. And it has some effect on the timbre of the drum. So the rolled bearing edges mute the attack sound. So think of it like a sharp edge, and you're hitting that sharp edge, and all that energy is going straight down into the drum shell, right? So that's on a square edge like this. Good for overtones, good for articulations. When you roll that bearing edge, it softens the contact point between the head and the shell and mutes it a little bit. And that muting has an impact on the timbre. And so you hear that. A boron drum, which everyone thinks of as thuddy, that has a flat, rolled bearing edge or taped bearing edge. And so those bearing edges really do have an impact on the sound, and they're chosen for each model to emphasize some aspect of the timbre. I think there's a drawing on our blog post that shows a hybrid.
It's a very, very, very small difference between the Purple Haze and the Asheville River series. The bearing edge is very, very, very small.
Yes.
It's very similar. Mine is a little less in depth than his is. His is more shaped. That's about it.
Yes, it's machined the same way and then hand sanded rounder for Marla.
Yeah. Okay, so question, Patrick. You're welcome, Dan. You've been doing your homework. You can tell people that have been doing their homework,
Yeah. Well, it's also a very nuanced difference.
Yeah.
And so when you're getting down to that, I mean, absolutely pay attention to those things and ask the questions. But my dad used to say things like, go around the corner, stand behind the door and play your drum and tell me what you're hearing. And I would have a super hard time if even a good drummer, if Marla was playing a drum with a hybrid bearing edge and one with a classic shaped bearing edge, and you were blind to it and didn't know what bearing edge was on there, I would have a super hard time knowing which was which.
All right, we're going to move on to a few more questions. This is the time to ask your questions. You can also raise your hand. We'll take it for about 5 more minutes about questions. And then what is the advantage of the 12-inch drum in the Marla Lee series? Do you sacrifice any of the sound for the smaller size? Is 12 or 14 better? What do you say, Patrick?
What do I say? Yes, absolutely. So we're back to that point that's been brought up several times already today, which is that diameter defines pitch. And so I think a lot of people coming to drums in the beginning really are expecting that resonant sound. What does the drum sound like? It's boomy, or it's resonant or something like that. And as you get smaller and smaller in diameter, you have a less and less resonant drum. And so the downside of the Purple Haze is that it's a little high in pitch in my mind. But the upside of it is that it's extremely portable. It's extremely comfortable. It does all those wonderful things for you. The things that we built into that high-pitched small diameter that show that we're trying to manipulate with the specifications that timbre is that we put a black head on it and we rolled the bearing edge and we increase the depth. Those 3 things are attempts to mollify that disadvantage of a small diameter, bright sounding drum. So we've taken the negative, what I consider a negative. I mean, some people want to hear a very bright drum. Every snare drummer wants to hear a bright, snarey sound, So that's not a negative thing. But in my mind, when I come to a drum, I want a deep, rich drum. I want to say, oh, wow, I feel it in my heart. I feel like the world is resonating with my sound, and the small diameters don't do that.
Yeah, but the Purple Haze is, I call it a she, but I think the instrument is lower because of the depth of it. I think that it does have a nice resonance, and I like to tune it a little lower, like it's not a high pitched snare drum sound. Come on. Okay, so Deborah writes she bought a buffalo drum, and you don't know you until your Cooperman arrives. Deborah, I've never played a Remo buffalo drum, but we see that Joyce has commented on your question that she has. So, your Cooperman drum will arrive soon, so maybe you can just keep it and enjoy it, the buffalo drum, and then you can always use it when you do your gatherings and you have friends over. You can have them play that, or if you can return it, then I would recommend just getting a 16-inch Remo drum, not a buffalo drum. But if it's but this sounds fine. If Joyce has used it, um, then it can work because I know Joyce plays beautifully. So I would recommend you keep it. But if it's easy to return it, to get a 16-inch Remo until your Cooperman arrives, maybe try that. I think
Well,
that.
drums should all be arriving pretty quickly. We're clearing out the orders, so you know,
Oh,
drop me an
that's a
email
really
and I'll
good.
let you know the schedule. But I want to comment on the Remo Buffalo drum because it's a common one that people pick up.
Okay.
So Remo, just like they formulate all these heads, I mean, Remo's doing the same thing that Cooperman is doing in thinking about, how do I mix all the specifications to get to the right sound? The Buffalo drum is explicitly designed to be a shaman drum. And I think that they are largely imagining that you're playing it maybe with a soft mallet, right? And so that finger technique that is what Marla will be teaching in the academy, and that is pretty much part of the frame drumming world, is not like a shamanic drum. And that's why Remo does offer drums with, I don't know what they're putting on there. They're using Skin Deep, I think, is the product that they're using now on the frame drum. But the buffalo drum has what's called fiber skin material on it, and it's thick and it's intentionally muted. And that's to emphasize, again, the shamanic timbre that Remo is seeking to achieve. So it's not Remo buffalo drum is not a bad drum. It's just that you have to bring to it the expectations of what it's designed to do.
Um, so, Karen, you wrote the pitch of drum question was about when playing with others who may be playing guitar, the other instruments. Everybody, when you're playing with other instruments, their pitches vary. So there's not one pitch that all guitarists play with, not one common pitch. So you get your drum and you hope that your drum resonates in one of the pitches that you're playing music with. That's why it's really nice to have mini drums, because you will find as you develop to play your skills, and you want to play with more musicians. Not everybody can be in that one pitch of your drum, right? So your drum, like, say your drum is in A, right? Your F. It could go into F. Like, there's a couple pitches that it could work. It could work in A. It could work in maybe one other, like a fifth above it, but that's it. They're very particular when playing with tuned instruments, so guitar. So when I perform with instrumentalists, I have very many drums with me, and they're all tuned to different pitches that match something in the scale that the guitarist is playing with. So usually it's the root or the fifth, but that's more into music theory. So again, there's not one drum that works for all the pitches, but you can definitely, make it work within a pitch that is in the scale that the guitarist is, or whoever you're playing music with is in. But you would want to sit with them and work with your drum and be like, okay, I'm in the key of F, and what are you in, and find a common pitch that your drum can fit in with him. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying not to get into music theory, but there's a root note, okay, and the root note, say, is A of your drum, and root notes and fifths, those are really nice, the nice notes that can work when you're accompanying. So the fifth of A is E. So if the guitarist is in A or the guitarist is in the key of E, your drum will fit nicely. It's a whole thing. We're not doing music theory in this class. Okay, 2 more questions. Yeah, when you tune Rosemary and the beautiful cat, did you guys see her cat? Her cat came to the class today. You want to, I like to tap the rim. Some people do this too. They hit the side of the, everybody does differently, but I find I like hitting right in the rim. I learned that from Patrick. So And we're gonna also give you guys the replay of the tuning class. We had a really intense tuning class a couple of years ago, and I want to make sure that we did that. Oh, I'm glad you like the music theory, Karen. Yeah, you can look up the fifths, like circle, like root and fifths, and like one of those two notes will fit when you accompany. And I'm excited that you want to play with others. Okay, so we want to thank you, Patrick. Thank you guys for joining us. As I told you, we could talk about this forever. We will be coming to you again soon for a retreat, and it's really, really fun, these retreats we do, because you get to see his shop. I mean, you can also go on your own if you happen to be in Vermont, and check out their beautiful shop. Before we get off, I just want to show you this, since we do have Peter on our call. These are beautiful stands that were made by Pete. Hi, Pete. What's up? You can unmute and say hi if you want. They are for the.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. They're for our frame drums in the freehand style, and he's only making these for us, for our community, and they're super cool. I really recommend it. And he doesn't have a lot of them. He hand makes all this stuff. And do you have one on his stand, Pete?
I have. It only take me a second.
Okay. But he doesn't have a lot of these. So if you are wanting to this is one version of his stand, and there's a whole other version too that I will talk about in our live calls. But this is a really great one because it's really portable. And how many of these do you have, Pete?
I have 30. I just sold 4.
Okay, so we have 26 left.
Or I have 8. I have 7 left from last year. I'm waiting for new. I got new logos going on them, and I'm waiting for them to be printed. So it's kind of holding me up from shipping some of them out.
So we can't hear you. We can't hear you drum. Can you just show us what it looks like? Don't worry about your sound. Can you just show us what it looks like? Do you guys see that? Here, we'll add him to the see that? So it goes right there.
And you just loosen these 2 cap screws, and it will adjust. You can play a drum 12 inches, and I mean 20 is a 22 would probably be a little bit too big, but
it's awesome.
But anything from a 20 to a 12.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Thank you and how do people order one?
Just message me.
And you guys all know Peter on our Facebook group.
Private message me.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for doing
Thank you
for our community, and happy birthday. He just had a birthday.
Thank you. 72.
Woo! Now you got to play in 72. I want you to play.
I was going to do that.
You got to play a rhythm in 72.
It can be done. Thank you.
Thank you. For my 50th birthday, he made his drum for me with another student. Where is it? I think it's over here. It's fun, as we get older together in this community. It's like when you turn 50, you all have to create rhythms in 50. When you turn 51, you create rhythms. This is a beautiful drum he made. Look at that. Patrick, how old are you?
I'm not saying.
We'll create a rhythm for you.
That drum is made with a Remo box.
Oh, really? This is made with the Remo box. Wow.
That's a Remo box.
Francine, this drum is not a 22-inch. The drum that I was playing, they're ready now. They make them now. But this is a 20. It's a 20-inch. And it has the humps here. I can show you guys that. I have one more question. There's one more question. Oh, and Patricia says she uses your stand for a 22-inch drum. Just so you know, you can use it for all sizes. The last question, Patrick, is why don't you drum? No, I'm just kidding. That was my question. What difference does it make if the drum is 4 inches or 4 3/4 and ash versus cherry? Oh boy, this is a lot. Can you make it a short answer, Patrick? Because they've already been
Sure. That's a good question. All right. So when you add depth, you do add it's a timbre story again. It adds punch. It adds a certain amount of resonance. Frame drum is not like another drum, but like a tom drum or anything with 2 heads. But you can imagine what's going on. So if you're playing a very bright snare drum, it's a piccolo drum. It's really shallow. And then when you want to go for a tom sound, you want to get that thuddier sound, you increase the depth of the same shell, right? So the same thing is going on with the frame drum. Adding 3/4 of an inch is what I consider, incrementally deeper. But again, it's like building in as much as you possibly can. I want the most resonant drum I can get. Go for a little extra depth. That's what's happening with the Marla 12-inch Purple Haze drum. So that's one thing. The second thing you're doing is you're adding weight. That's a disincentive in terms of the ergonometrics. If you want to pick that drum up, play it upright, you've got that extra 1/4 of an inch of heavyweight material all the way around the diameter. And when you get to a big diameter drum, you're adding a lot of weight. That can be a disadvantage ergonomically. It can be an advantage.
Did he just freeze? It's a good shot of him, though, isn't it? Let's catch this as a screenshot to remember this moment. Well, maybe he'll come back on. I can answer the wood question, but I can't answer the size. But he's frozen. Oh, there he goes. Okay, so maybe he'll come back on. Let me just write him back. You froze. Please join us again. We're waiting for you. All right. The wood types. I know that the cherry is a lighter weight wood, and the ash is a very heavier wood. So a lot of my drums are made with the cherry drums. And what's really cool about their woods is they're all local. They're all, cut down the street, and they're all, So, Francine, do you want to ask your question? Is it for me or is it for Patrick?
You.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
Hi.
Hi, good to meet you.
Okay. It's great. Um, okay. So just to recap,
I know it's a
for
lot of
an
information.
upright, no, for the upright or the lap, you're recommending a 16-inch, not an 18-inch.
Well, depending on what drum you already have. Yeah, for practicing the
Yeah,
lap,
I'm going to be buying one. I'm going to be buying a Cooperman one.
yeah, I recommend a 16. Yeah.
16. Okay, so it would be, does the purple head come in a 16? I'm sorry, purple haze or the black head. Does that come in a 16?
Yeah, the black head, so any drum you order from Cooperman, you can get either with the black suede
Okay.
or with the Renaissance. So it doesn't matter what size, they shape it to whichever size you want. And what's really cool, like I said before, like if you really don't know what head you want, you could get your first drum with the black suede, play it for the year or 1 year, and then be like, okay, now I want to try, the other head. And then you ship it back in, and it's like, I think it's like $40 to change. Don't quote me on it, but to change the head. So then you can change the head. So you don't actually have to get 2 drums if you don't want to. You can.
Because right now I'm in the 101 and you're teaching us the freehand.
Yes.
So I'm using whatever I think this is an 18, a Remo 18. But it's okay, but from watching these videos and learning more about the drums, I'm ready to get a Cooperman.
Good. Well, it's smart. You will find that when you get whether it's a Cooperman or not, it's like anything, you get a better quality. It's like you're more motivated to eat more food if it's better quality food.
Right,
You're more
right.
motivated to practice if it's a better sounding drum. Trust me, you will be so much more
I
motivated.
know. I feel it already.
Yeah. But the Remo drums, and which are mostly the ones that people buy as their first drum, they do have their purpose. Like when I go to the beach, I bring my Remo. When I have kids over, you got your kids over, you got the grandkids over, you bring your Remo. They do have their purpose for that. But for studying and to really get in deep with this art form, having a quality drum is like it's really worth it.
Night and day.
So it's like if you think about what you spend on your lattes, you know what I mean? Not you, but like people, you know what I mean? We got you back, Patrick. Welcome. Yeah, so it's worth saving, and I would get this a 16, and you can choose which head you want. If you want to get it with the Renaissance or the black suede, you can choose. And
It's very difficult to choose. I guess at the 16-inch with one of Peter's stands would allow me to do the freehand.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. That's
Yeah.
where I'll start.
Wonderful. Good to have you with us. You're welcome back, Patrick. We're happy you came back. It's okay. His sound is not. Yeah, he. um, yes, the 10% discount for people that is for two drums for all the for all the students. And the refresher we give you for one drum, but for the refresher we don't give it the discount. If you're in the refresher course, but if you are in the main course, you're not doing the refresher, we give you the discount. And it's okay, Patrick. I think we're gonna end the whole the. So what's really cool about the Coopermans is they're really personable. So if you guys have questions about, I could tell, I know. You see how nice. And what's really cool is the company's owned by his sister, Patsy, who was awesome. And I recommend if you guys live in the Northeast to get in your car and take a summer trip and go visit their shop. It's just such a cool hang. And then go just check out the area. But their customer service is really, really wonderful. So if you have questions about drums and the wood types and stuff like that, their website has a lot of resources on that with the blogs, and then also you can just call them and ask them about, you're considering this and I really hate orange but I want the Marla tar, can you make it, I don't know, purple or something like that. So do you call them, talk to them, because they really are wonderful people. Okay, the last question I will answer is, I'm curious how frame drumming fits in with drum circles. Diane, oh boy. So this is a deep question because, before, I used to go to a lot of drum circles in my days, and I was so upset because nobody could hear the frame drum. And I would play the frame drum really loud, and it just was just not working. So I decided to no longer take my frame drum to traditional drum circles. And I created my own drum circles with frame drums. So that's the way around it, is to create your own community of frame drum circles. And they can play shakers in it. You can also bring on other instruments. But the djembe and the frame drums, unless people are listening intensively and it's like rhythms that really are sparse and everyone has their position in the rhythm to really be heard, it's just a nightmare. And you will like be banging on your frame drum to be heard, and then you'll have bruised hands. So the way around it is to just gather some friends and have your own frame drum circle drum jams, and you can do that with some of the rhythms that you'll be learning. You can you can use some of the rhythms to teach. Okay, and Patrick, we're going to say goodbye to you now that you're here. You figured that out. Woo!
I wish I had figured that out when you were teasing me about not playing.
Oh, you wish you had gone away, huh? You wish you had
But I apologize to everyone about the technology glitch. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Patrick, we want to thank you for being here with us. And
yeah, I should also add that if you have ongoing questions, or if I didn't answer the question the way you were looking to get the answer, I was misdirected in my response, email me, call me, contact me through our website. And again, like Marla said, it doesn't have to apply specifically to Cooperman drums. I'm happy to talk about drums in general.
Yeah, well, we're really grateful for your support and our students. So many people report, like, they're like in our Facebook group, you'll find people be like, I'm so excited, the drum's coming. And then it's like the moment comes and they make a video and the box is there and then they open it up and it's just like, it's like Christmas, and it has a smell like, like the new smell. And cats love to hang in your Cooperman drums. The deeper the drum shell, the more. In the email I sent out, that was Marcello.
While I was paused, that was your comment about deep shell drums. their big advantage is that your animal is going to love it. That
I never
your
said that. I like that
your
one.
pet is going to love it.
Yeah, we don't have a picture yet of dogs sitting in the drums, but we do have a lot of cats. So Patrick had a cat in the shop that he really liked, black, and he would live hang out in the drums. And anyways, we're looking forward to seeing what drums what you drum up with your drums this year. And thank you again, Patrick, for your support. We hope to be back next summer for a retreat. So
Sounds wonderful. Good. I hope
yeah,
I get to meet you all in person. If not, I hope I get to hear you play the drums and enjoy it. Just really enjoy the class. Don't get too hung up about the details of which drum to buy. Hmm?
and I'm gonna put the tuning class replay. I'll put that in the live masterclass replay in the Academy portal, so you guys can watch that. If you really want to, like, you're having really big, you really want to get deep into tuning. But again, if it sounds good, you don't need to tune it. It's just when it starts sounding, it sounds a little weird, then you should focus on it a little bit. But don't obsess over it, is what Patrick is saying, right?
Exactly.
Already in tune.
Yeah.
So what are you going to go work on now, Patrick? What drum are you working on right now?
I have a Rick to ship out, and I have one 16-inch tar to finish and get out the door today. So.
Wow. Okay, go. Bye. And it's really
Bye.
cool. What we didn't do this time, but we usually if we do another retreat, which we will, you guys get to see the shop tour, which is really, really fun. You can see how they make it. Like the machines are really, really, like, some of them are really ancient. Like this is like a real company. We don't. They put their hands on the drums. There's not many of you out there anymore. It's really nice, like handmade instruments. Just want to share that. Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.